Hi, welcome to the Liberating Effect, and I am here with Rabbi Mendy Greenberg and Isaac Smoldon, and we are talking about, we're talking about a lot of things. This always takes us off onto rabbit trails, but we started with a book called The Letters for Life by Levi Shmotkin, and he came and did a book signing here, and we all ended up with copies of the book, whether from the rabbi or because I bought them at the book signing and shared them. And it's been a really interesting read. It's been a very interesting topic of conversation. And we all sat down and said, let's do a podcast about some of the topics in this book and the liberating effect. Isaac, do you want to talk about where the title came from?
Well, I really think that was both you and Rabbi Mendy identifying that as a theme in the first chapter, which is what we are talking about today. I'm excited for this because I loved, as folks may know, we did another limited podcast on the network with Exit 12, and it really provided a great forum, I think, to have a focused discussion on some larger topics, and with no pressure to keep going after we had gone through that topic, which in that instance was the 12 steps. In this instance, it is the book Letters for Life, which is split into 12 chapters. Mm-hmm. And I think the liberating effect is something that is certainly touched on. It's a section in this first chapter of seeing others, but it also has through lines throughout the rest of the book. And that idea of seeing others and really, and I'm being rude, I'm not giving Rabbi Mendy the chance to introduce himself right off the top, but I think the theme of this episode for me that has stood out a lot after I read it in the following weeks and months is in order to heal, give, is the note that I wrote myself, and that providing that liberating effect. So yes, very excited for not only this podcast, but also for today's discussion.
And welcome, Rabbi. Thank you for
having me,
gifting us with your presence.
Thank you for having me here. And I'm just like as both of you said, I'm very excited for this journey. And just like all of you, when I read the book, it's extremely inspiring, liberating. I feel liberated just by reading it, and looking forward to diving into this whole topic, going through chapter by chapter, and hearing your thoughts and maybe sharing some of my thoughts. So
awesome.
Yeah.
I think one thing that this has in common with the podcast we did with the 12 steps is there's really individual application where you read something and it really resonates, or you hear something and it really resonates. It's got community application where, the statement Isaac just made about you heal by helping others. That's a continual theme, which I really love throughout the book. But also the world. And one thing that was really, really fun about the last podcast that we did and some of the book signing events, people all over the world were commenting and engaged and feeling the impact. And I really love that idea that these are not just universal things that we're talking about in a small room in Wasilla, Alaska. These are universal themes that are useful all over the world, and we can help others. We can help one another.
Right.
Love one another, right?
That's right.
Should we dive into chapter 1?
Yeah.
Yes.
Dive.
It opens up with this talking about the discovery of the first black hole. And the note that I have written for myself is how can you be a sun, a light giver, instead of a black hole, someone that takes the light and sucks it all inward. Again, this isn't the only time we're talking about Exit 12 a lot, but I saw a lot of AA concepts in this, in that a lot of what AA deals with, I learned through our discussions with the guests that we have with Brian and Michelle, is I think there's a lot of underlying themes of selfishness, combating selfishness. And that was the starting point for me in this chapter, was in every aspect of what I am doing, am I giving or am I taking? That dichotomy.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. And this is this whole idea of the sun and the moon, the sun being a giver and the moon being a receiver, and that being in all of existence, that everything gives and everything takes. And every one of us, we have it in the spiritual aspects, also in the physical world, right? Take a tree, as it's written over here, take plants, trees. From one hand, it takes from the soil, from the environment, from the sun, and then the same thing it gives. It gives fruits, it gives oxygen, and so to every single person. Our very existence, as we were made, we all have to receive from, whether it's our family, our parents, our elders, our teachers, but we also have to give. We have to give to others, shine a light on others, and bring warmth to others. And if we only do one and not the other, then we are going to naturally feel something is wrong, because we are going against our very makeup, how we were created. And as you said, what would the sun be like? Would anyone give any attention to the sun if it would be a black hole? If all that power, all that energy that the sun gives off, if it would take it for itself, would it be anything? Would anyone even look at it? So really, what every person, what's so unique about each one of us is our contributions, what we give to others. Yes, that's a very powerful, very, very powerful idea. Actually,
The idea that would be liberating is fascinating, isn't it?
That's right.
I mean, I think where we got the title is on page 7. It talks about one of the letters, and the comment was, you are much too wrapped up with yourself, with your own emotions and feelings and aspirations. You must get away from yourself and begin to think of others. It is time to begin an active participation in society, to give and give generously. The opportunities are many and the need is great. And I had to read that 3 or 4 times and realize that reference is to liberation.
Right. That's how we get liberated.
Yes.
We stop thinking about ourselves. In other words, we're keeping ourselves in the greatest confines and the greatest prison, so to speak.
Right.
And the best way to get out of that is by getting out of ourselves.
Yeah.
I had a note about the letter where the rabbi is recommending that I think it was someone, if I remember correctly, that was in university that was struggling a little bit, and he recommended that he teach the Talmud.
Oh yeah.
I have that pronounced correctly, right?
Yeah.
I feel a little bit bad for the rabbi and any of our Jewish listeners that may be watching or listening, because I am sure that there will be points in the next coming months where I just butcher a pronunciation, but I am trying my best. And I experienced this a little bit the past week. It was our church's summer camp that they do every year. And of course, it's the week of the golf tournament. There's so much going on here. But when I was growing up, I always did campfire as a counselor there. And on Thursday night, I went over there, and I did that again just for the night. I had the opportunity to go over and
with the guitar,
play for campfire with the guitar.
So I'm leaving with the guitar,
and got to hang out with the elementary schoolers and the middle schoolers. And I think that for me, going into that week, I was kind of organizing the whole week, and I was like, okay, on Monday I have this, and on Friday it's the golf tournament, so I have to try to fit this in here because I should do it. And then when I got out there, I felt so peaceful. It was so relaxing. I think I felt more relaxed in that moment and just fulfilled and happy doing stuff, running around the woods and hanging out at campfire, than I did when I was on actual vacation from work for 2 weeks.
Wow.
When we were out and about. And I thought back, I had taken these notes earlier, but it reminded me of that as I'm laying in this field during Capture the Counselor with all the kids running around hiding, that it was just another good reminder of how sometimes, even when, I see this as an obligation or something on my schedule that I have to do, how quickly it can turn into something that I get to do, that I'm fulfilled by and refreshed by. That's
beautiful. And actually, I'll connect this to a personal thing about the sun, talking about the sun and bringing off heat. So I don't know if you mentioned just now on this podcast, but it's obvious that these are the letters that of the Rebbe, Rabbi Menachem Mendel Schneerson, who was one of the greatest Jewish leaders in the last 100 years. And Rabbi Levi Shmotkin, who was here before, he was the one who compiled them together and put them together in topics and put together this book. So I had my family, my father, Rabbi Yosef Greenberg, and my mother, S.D. Greenberg. We moved here to Alaska in 1991 to Anchorage to start the Alaska Jewish Campus. I was 1 year old at the time. So one of the things actually in this chapter, it's also mentioned, the story that you spoke about, that rabbi he was a rabbi, by the way. But let's back to the story you mentioned. If I'm not mistaken, he was a rabbi, and he was going through a hard time, and he had a second divorce, or he was getting over a second marriage or something, and he was in a really, really bad big rut, and he went to the dollars. So basically, the first 30 years of the Rebbe's leadership, from 1950 till 1941 till 1981, he would accept people for private audience 3 nights a week: Sunday, Tuesday, and Thursday nights. He would begin at 8:00 p.m. Everyone was able to go and see him, from random people to world leaders to professors to doctors to scientists, Jewish and not Jewish alike. And sometimes these meetings would go from 8 p.m. till 6, 7 in the morning.
Wow.
Yeah. This was serious stuff, and you didn't have to have any credentials or any type of, anyone could have gone in and had a conversation with him. Sometimes you have to wait in line a long time. After 1981, the crowds that wanted to see him became so big, and the Rebbe was already 80, and it just wouldn't be able to continue that so many people would be able to go into him that often. So in 1986, he started a new custom, which was every Sunday he would stand right outside his office and hand out $1 bills. And the idea was that with every person he came in contact with, that he made them an emissary of his to do a good deed, to do something. And the idea was, he said from his father-in-law, when two people meet, something good should happen to a third. So this became famous, and everyone knew that you were able to have a brief moment with the Rebbe. If you came on Sunday, you would receive $1. In the beginning, it was just handing out $1 bills, and then very fast the line started growing. It started coming 4, 5, 6 hours on a Sunday. Again, people from all walks of life would come, and you would have like a brief 30 seconds, minute, 2 minutes to speak to the Rebbe about something that you wanted. So you didn't go into his office, and it didn't take that much time, but it was brief. And the Rebbe would stand there until he was 90 years old, until he had a stroke, until he suffered a stroke in 1992. So I was privileged many times. I was born in 1990, so from 1990 till 1992, I had many opportunities of going by those dollars as a little baby from birth, and getting these dollars and blessings from the Rebbe. So in 1991, right before we moved to Alaska, the secretary of the Rebbe said that we're going to Alaska. So the first thing the Rebbe looked at me, I'm a 1-year-old baby, and he, with a big smile, says, "Is he also going to Alaska?" And gave me a second $1 to give to charity in Alaska. Now, before I get to the punchline, what I'm trying to bring up the story for, that itself, taking a little child, a little baby, right? So many of us, babies are cute, but which, scientist, professor, great person spends hours of their time, which they could have been contributing to big innovations, to making real change, and, and here giving so much time to little babies, to babies that don't even remember that. I don't remember that happen. I have a video of it, but I don't remember it. That the idea of seeing every person as infinite potentials, infinite, so they're a little child, but this child's going to grow up and be something, make a change and difference in the world. And that's worth your time. You're a 90-year-old world leader that the entire world is coming to you, presidents, prime ministers, scientists, doctors, lawyers. And here you have all the time in the world and all the patience and to look at a little child to see their. But anyway, we came back for a visit a year later in 1992, and this actually was a month before his stroke. And we go by, and we said that we're going back to Alaska. And the Rebbe again asked about me. Am I also going? And he gave me a second $1 for charity. And he saw my sister and my mother. And then after we went by, and he already looked towards the next people that were coming by, he turned back to us with a big smile and said in Yiddish, "Ihr sollt machen dort warm." You should make it warm there. We're Alaska, right?
Wow.
So that that was his last message. It was exactly 29 days before his stroke. And that was his message to us, to make it warm there. And actually, there was other times that people from Alaska that came by and received his blessing, and that was one of the things he focused on, that Alaska has a name of being cold. because you're in such a place, in such an environment, you have to have an extra temperature of warmth to bring to the people around. So again, this idea of, some people in Alaska could feel that this is a place where we kind of hibernate, we hide into our beds, into our warm homes, and don't think about others, especially during the winter times. And I think the Rebbe's message is to us, and really that's really the message of this book, is to, in those hard times, and I know sometimes people could, fall into some addictions or some depression because of the dark, because of the cold. And here in Alaska, I think specifically, it's so important to remember to be like a sun, to not just be into ourselves, but think about there are other people next door, next block, next city, whatever, people in our area, people that are in our family and our friends that may be having a hard time, maybe having a hard winter, maybe didn't come out of the house in a month or two. Are they okay? What's going on with them? And try to be that sun, try to bring that light, that warmth to somebody else.
A light giver and a warmth giver.
Exactly.
And to back up just a little bit about you talking about the limitless potential of an individual, it sounds like treating everyone as assets and not liabilities. In my mind, that's what you're describing, right. And such a huge part about what I think my house's message has been for the past 15 years.
That's right. Yes, and I think the same thing, that this idea of sometimes in society we easily write off people, or easily write off and say, they're homeless, they're done, they're whatever, they fall into addiction, and just give up on somebody. And that's totally, the Rebbe also, as actually one of the things is says in the introduction, that the first part, this book is actually separated into two parts. One is called Essentials for a Healthy Life, and the second part is called Overcoming Darkness. The reason for this is because one of the Rebbe's core beliefs is that that healing, physical healing, and also mental and emotional healing begins not when we have problems, not when we begin to be physically sick or emotionally, mentally ill, but before that, on the good days, when things are fine, when things are great, everything is fine. In a physical way, are we living a healthy lifestyle physically? Are we eating well? Are we sleeping well? Are we having a good routine? And then in a more emotional level, are we taking care of our emotional and mental needs? And so therefore, the first part of the book is actually about living a healthy lifestyle on a day-to-day basis. Like this whole idea of thinking about others, it's not when we fall into problems, then start thinking about others, but it's actually to, on a day-to-day basis, to live a healthy lifestyle. And the Rebbe gives us a whole bunch of tools for this. And this week we're taught the first tool is about thinking about others, which, by the way, I want to pay attention to the letter that's on page 11. So the Rebbe tells this person that you'll gain two things by thinking about others. One is that you'll forget about yourself and your own problems, and you'll basically focus, which that's one of the things that this whole idea is. That one of the liberating effects is just the very fact that, sometimes we get so stuck in ourselves, so stuck in our own problems, and so stuck in our own self-doubt, and just stop thinking about yourself so much, right? As you mentioned before, don't be wrapped up in yourself. Think about others. So that's one thing you're going to gain. You're going to just think about others. And then the second thing is that we're going to be rewarded by God because we're all God's children. And God, and the way how it works, the Torah teaches very often that there's measure for measure. So when God sees that we are there thinking about others, he blesses us in kind. So there's, first of all, a therapeutic concept that we're stopping to think about ourselves and think about something else that liberates us, but also that brings God's additional blessings. Because we are helping others, God will help us and heal us. And then at the end, he writes, needless to say, this is not intended to rule out medical advice. In other words, of course, you can still go to a doctor or a psychiatrist or a professional, but the best medicine is preventative medicine. And such medicine has an additional benefit of doing good even in ill health. So in other words, this type of preventative medicine, sometimes preventative medicine only helps before you're sick. Once you're sick, it's too late.
Right.
This type of preventative medicine helps even while you're ill. So that the what you gain by focusing on others and helping others is good for preventative, that you should never fall into the bad places even in the first place. But even once we fall in, it still helps. it still works.
Absolutely. There's a section here at the end of the chapter, Michelle, that I have heard you reference multiple times outside of the conversations about this podcast that I think that I just had a note on that I think is really impactful about the dancer at weddings.
Oh, I love that story. I talked about that at the book signing. It was my favorite story of the book, and it's not a long ways in. If you want to read the book, all you have to read is the first few chapters and you get the story, but it's about a woman who moved to Brooklyn, and she was lonely. She was alone and lonely, and the rabbi told her to go to every wedding that she could find and to dance at the wedding. And 30 years later, people knew her as the woman who danced at weddings. And not only did she comment about the joy that it brought, but other people were brought so much joy by her dancing at their wedding, and it became like a thing. And I really love that story. I think we don't think outside the box often enough. I would never think as a psychologist about prescribing someone dancing at weddings, but her response back to the rabbi was that it brought her joy, and many married couples talked about the joy that it brought, and so I really loved that story.
Yes,
it's a precious little glimpse into that creative thinking around what do you bring to a wedding, what do you bring, not as a gift necessarily in physical form, but what do you bring in your attitude and the joy that you share with others and how you do that. And I really loved that assignment. There's something really precious about that.
yes. And there's videos actually of her dancing as in her old age. I mean, she didn't stop at age 60. She was doing this till her late. I don't know how long she lived, in her 80s or 90s. I mean, she was dancing till her last breath every wedding, and she danced and she danced. And it's such an amazing idea that you bring joy to someone that's going through deep, dark times inside. And it's contrary to so much what everyone would, as you said, what a psychologist even say that, we're thinking so much about ourselves and so much about our hardships and how we're going to get out of our problems. And here, no, go and bring joy to a wedding.
Well, and she said it was contrary to her nature as well. She wasn't like an outgoing dancing type of person in her daily life. And so not only going against, those feelings, but just like her natural tendencies as well. And the fact that she continued this for the rest of her life, and that this was what brought her so much joy is just fascinating. In so much of this, the opposite of what you would think or expect turns out to be the piece that provided that liberating effect for people. And I think that is a through line that we see throughout the book as we move forward as well.
And I really loved the point of don't wait until you feel like you're ready. You don't wait until okay, now I've got all my ducks in a row.
Yeah.
It's just do it.
Right.
Just go and do it.
That's what I was actually thinking while Isaac was saying that so many times, especially as we're all here, people that we are involved in helping others. And sometimes I know, at least I can talk for myself, that sometimes you think that naturally, today's not a good day to help others, to teach others, because I'm myself. I need my, and there's nothing that makes so much sense. You would think that makes so much sense, but really that's nothing farther from the truth. If you're having a hard day, force yourself to do something for somebody else, and that will be the best medicine. That will be the best way to really turn everything on its head. And that's really what this chapter and so much through the book, the things that you would think would be obvious are actually the opposite of the worst things to do to help yourself get out of those situations and struggles.
Yeah, it's counterintuitive, but it really works. And it doesn't just work for you. It works for your community, and it brings the whole world into perspective, right? It's there's a bigger picture here. We're part of a bigger community. And I really love that piece. I think in terms of taking our eyes off ourselves, that helps me to think, I'm a drop in the ocean. But there's a moment there where I get to choose. I can choose.
That's right.
And
as we close, what would either of you have just in closing thoughts for this concept of seeing others? I mean, it is interesting to me. It would be stating the obvious. I think, when we talk about all of the problems that we face as people, as a community, as a state, a country, a nation, it's all because we can't just get along. It's all because we're not able to collaborate, and why can't people just work together for the common good? But I think that this chapter takes the focus off of why can't we as a larger group work together, and really shrinks it down to the individual. What are you going to do today in your daily life that is for someone else?
That's right. I think it gives over here examples. I think that if every day, first of all, I mean one idea would be is to have that charity box, which we were giving out, those yellow boxes.
I love those.
And every day, I mean, even though it's not talking to somebody else and not helping someone else, but the very fact that you take a penny out of your belonging, something very small, and you give it to the charity box, what you're really doing is you're saying, it's not all about me. I'm now focusing my attention to someone else. That itself is very helpful. But in addition, we could go through our phones and go through our contact list and do the people that we know, our family members, cousins, friends, and find one person that can maybe use financial help, or could use a listening ear, or some spiritual inspiration, someone that we think, and you never know, just give them a phone call, a text message, and how you're doing, whatever. You don't have to do something random and find someone in the street that you don't know. That's also good. But you could do it to someone that you do know, and you don't know who was the last person that ever thought about that person, who was the last person that reached out to that person, and you may be that, and just be there to offer them your ear, your help, your inspiration, and you never know where that will go. And most importantly, for this context, how much it's going to do for ourselves. We will feel so much more liberated and so much more inspired, and realize that we have a purpose, a sense of joy, purpose, meaning, that we are something more than ourselves. I want to point out at the end of every chapter, they have a photocopy of an original letter. So here the Rebbe is talking to our father about a daughter that I guess she's engaged, and she's in a very bad state emotionally. And the Rebbe's suggestion is to get a group to ask her to help them out, I guess with younger children or something. And the Rebbe said it should be very clear that it's not coming from the parents. She shouldn't realize that basically to get a group, to get some organization to ask her for their help. And one of the things the Rebbe says is that sometimes the stimulus, what will stimulate somebody to get out of their shell, sometimes, in other words, we could be in a situation that we're in such a bad state that we don't care to help ourselves. We don't want to do anything to break out of our current situation. But then when someone says, but someone else needs help, that might be the only key to get us to break out of our own self. Mm-hmm. So sometimes the excitement to get us to change our pattern and to do something different, if it's just for our own well-being, someone can say, look what you're doing to yourself. You want to change? Because I don't care. I'm in such a bad space. I don't care to change myself. But it's to help somebody else that can inspire me to get out and do something.
There were so many things that resonated around this for me, mainly just figuring out how to grieve the loss of my husband. And in the process of that, managing the intense, overwhelming, sometimes completely debilitating feelings of loss, but also navigating out of that, because you can't stay there. I know that there are people who stay there. I can't stay there. I'm not wired like that. I'm not comfortable there. It doesn't feel like a place that I need to remain. I know that sometimes I go there and it's, dark and gloomy and ugly, and but I think really the liberation in this for me is when I feel that way. I have several friends who recently also lost their husbands, and reaching out to them and saying, how are you doing? What's happening? Are you okay? What are you feeling today? And really making a point to do that. Not because I need that necessarily, but because I think that is a way of liberating myself from the grief. I'm not alone there. I'm not a victim. I'm not stuck.
And that is the perfect segue into the next chapter of this section,
Yes,
which
it
is
is.
know that you're not alone.
Right.
So we put a pin in that, and we come back to it in 2 weeks when we talk about chapter 2.
Nice.
Perfect.
And I don't have an outro planned or scheduled, so we
thank
can
you,
just
Rabbi.
wing it.
I'll wing it. Thank you, Rabbi Mendy, for joining us and for sharing this book with us, and for really you came and invited us to do this event with you that was really moving and encouraging, and I'm so pleased that we can work together. And the Liberation Effect is recorded in the My House studio. Ozzy Keener is our editor and producer. Isaac Smoldon. Rabbi Mendy, thank you for being our guests.
We'll see you next time.
Thank you so much for having me, and this is beautiful.
Thank you.